housing is 100% a human right, as the study's saying here. But also a human right is safety. Safety is a human right for every single person here. I remember, growing up, and I remember this province being safe. I remember this province being kind. I remember this province having a good economy. Now, we don't have safety. We have communities that are filled with drugs. We have communities that are filled with hate. We have communities that won't talk to each other anymore, right? Like, I talk to lots of people. Whenever I go to people that are in support of this kind of stuff, and I give them an opposite point of view, all they do is tell me to shut up, they get mad at me, and they don't listen. I remember, being in my addiction, and I remember being in that place of low self-esteem. I remember being addicted to drugs so bad that all I knew was to use drugs. All I knew was to lie, was to cheat, was to steal. That's all I knew. My experience growing up was not fun. But what taught me to live, and I want to emphasize this a lot, was taking responsibility. What taught me to live was kindness, was respect. What taught me to live and to love myself and have self-esteem was the place up the road, here. It's a private institution. This private institution emphasizes responsibility. This private institution emphasizes actually changing who you are as a person. I remember being in that institution the first little bit there. I was there for a month, 2 months. And I remember being there, and I remember not knowing what the solution was. I remember being so confused and full of so much confusion and hate. And then I realized that they weren't going to fix me. They were giving me the tools. They were giving me the things I needed. But what was going to fix me was me. I needed to actually use those tools. I needed to use those tools to love myself, to have self-esteem, to have self-respect, to have self-motivation. I think we need to have open dialogue about things, right? And they won't listen to us. So it has to come to this. If they listen to us, and they actually understood and listened to people, recovering addicts. I don't use drugs anymore. They listen to people where it has succeeded, helping people get clean and love themselves. They would understand that what they're doing is not working. There's a lot of things out there. There's welfare. This welfare that they give to people, they spend it on drugs. They could spend it on rent, housing. It's there. There's a lot of things that they can do to spend on housing, but they don't use it for housing because they're addicted to drugs. That's all they know. The core of addiction is self-centeredness. The core of addiction is using the drugs. That's all I thought about for so long. All I thought about, when can I get my next fix? When can I get my next drink? That's all I thought about, for a really long time. But then I started to care about something else. I started to care about my life, right? And the place up the road gave me an opportunity for that. These public treatment centers don't work. And I know that because I went to a private one and I volunteer at public ones. These public institutions, all they teach people is to go to bed and wake up, go to bed and wake up, right? And then they have the same behaviors, they have the same issues, so they get the same results. That's the definition of insanity. Doing the same thing and expecting different results, right? So a lot of times they relapse, and a lot of times they die because now they don't have a tolerance. And this BC government, the NDP government, the city governments, a lot of them have taken no responsibility for themselves. They've killed Canadians, they've killed a lot of people, and they say nothing about these deaths. They tell people like me to shut up and get on. These private institutions, they have a voice, and they used to speak up. They used to say, hey, this isn't working. But they were told to shut up.
They were friends with their grants. The NDP government told them